Tell me why the MZ open sourcing their skills library is exciting to you.
Yeah. So hi everyone, Heather Whiteman. I recently was with GE Digital, had a long career working on people analytics, and really exciting right now. I'm transitioning into being able to teach that and share it. But more than just the people analytics teaching and sharing, I love the notion of skills. I think skills are the future, and the broad sense of skills, your full set of ability, competencies, capabilities. Nobody has a job. You're not your job. Like, raise your hand if the job that you applied for, the written up write-up, is what you spend your day doing right now. Okay, there's one guy. So for those of you on video, there's one gentleman who raised his hand. That's it. That's not what makes you you. That's not even how you spend your time. You're a collection of skills, knowledge, capabilities, understanding, experiences. And so I'm really excited about the notion of how do we continue to help people build those skills. So the MZ open access API can help educators, can help governments, can help communities and corporations make known to people what of their skills can be valuable. They can excite people to build and learn new skills that will make them employable, marketable, and hopefully will align with their own passions and engagement. So that's why I'm really excited about the more that people appreciate their own skills and can get passionate about building more, the more alignment we're going to see just across the board. I think it has the power to really make a lot of change in human happiness. I mean, don't we all want to do stuff that we're both good at and inspired by? And that's what really gets me about the open skills.
Yeah, I love it. Who's working on anything related to skills in their organization, skill identification, taxonomies? Mm-hmm. So
quite a bit.
A lot of you're working on it internally. Who's working with a vendor to help with that work? Mm-hmm. Oh my God. I have my own narrative on that. I'm going to kick it over to you. Do you think, I'm going to be very pointed, do you think they should go it alone, or do you think they should work with a third party like an MZ or LinkedIn or Burning Glass or someone like that?
Yes, great question. So I think it's tough. I mean, we were talking the other night, Bailie was talking about using the ONET database. I think that there are resources out there that are free and available. I think the problem so Heather and I first met when we were both working, I was at Cisco, she was at GE Digital, and when I was trying to tackle this at Cisco, part of the problem is defining that taxonomy and then that taxonomy being transferable in some way when we're defining skills. Because if everyone goes away and builds their own version of the same thing, then nothing's going to talk to each other. So then if you think about what I was talking about earlier around when you're then layering in, trying to connect to learning opportunities or connect to job recommendations, then you have to build all these joins, right? And so I am a strong believer we should have some form of universal taxonomy, or at least a way to make these things all talk to each other. And I think the more that it can be an open source one, I think the better, right? Because obviously then everyone has access to it. I think there's a problem around very specific vendor defined ones that don't talk to each other, because then you just end up with 5 versions of the same thing, right? And so I think we have to find a happy medium there. I think the flip side of it is there's probably an incentive for vendors to keep it up to date, to spend money on actually making it, useful. What's the hot new skill, things like that, right? So yeah, I mean, I would always go for open source if it's available, but it's how good is that, and is it transferable?
Yeah, I want to just draw out a point of emphasis, because we often talk in our profession of people analytics and HR in general that the business is getting disrupted. I hope we're all aware that HR is obviously getting disrupted as well, and people analytics is getting disrupted as well. So we have to be more creative in terms of how we do our work. So when I first started almost 20 years ago, it was like, okay, you have a question. I turn into my internal data assets and try and solve that problem. Now it's like you got assets external to the organization that you can acquire, that's a better quality, that's more usable, it's less work, it's more efficient, and the tools above that can be really powerful in terms of generating insight. And if you automate those insights, then you have potentially an AI platform or something that can be disseminated throughout the organization. So, Ian, just sticking with you for a minute, because in your presentation, which was extremely well received, so not surprising, you had talked about the skills of the future for HR. And a pointed question I have for you. It's one thing to see skills up there and reflect, well, I have that, I don't have that. But there's this micro-learning movement, just-in-time learning. So what is inspiring your framing for myHRfuture, and what do you believe organizations should be thinking about in terms of how they educate their HR teams?
Yeah, and I think it completely depends on where everyone is in their journey, right? And then I think the thing I do fundamentally believe is it's all about comes back to us as individuals and personalizing that, right? Yeah. So that's what's so amazing about the way technology is evolving in this, is that depending on where I am, I can start to then build the skills I want to build. And it might be, I want to go really deep in people analytics and I'm going to build up that stack and I'm starting at the beginning and I'm going to go all the way up. Or it might be, and I'm an HR business partner and I feel I need to go horizontal across all these skills, but I just need foundational level across them all, right? And any combination of that. And I think we all pretty much learn by doing, and we learn by reading, and we learn in so many different ways, right? Take one training course and you're done is just, it's just not reality, right? And so that's where I kind of feel like the bite-sized thing, it's not new. We're just talking about it in a different way, which is we've always gone away and done something, seen something, read something, and then tried to apply it, and then learn a bit more and try to apply it. And I just think that the general industry is catching up in terms of making that really easy for people to do, and to helping people jump into the piece of content that they need at the time that they need it, that they have a question or that they're trying to get work done. And ultimately, that's what we're trying to do here, is help people get their jobs done, right? And give you the knowledge you need to do that. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is almost a how-to video that you would find on YouTube that you can watch in 5 minutes to help you get it done, yeah?
Right, absolutely, yeah.
And so, Heather, I'm going to toss it over to you, because there is a place for that. There's also a place for deep learning, right, where you're slowing down. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so, I definitely agree with bite size. I have really mixed feelings on just-in-time learning. I love it. It is great for when you need to know how to do something right now. I am totally for it. But there is a topic and a place for that. So we're all, conscious and trying to focus on people analytics. Please don't learn data privacy just in time. Please, that's horrible. There are things that you should understand, that you should have basics and foundations around. Please learn research methodology so that you even know whether or not the analytics you produce are going to tell you what you think they're telling you. Like, did you even set it up right? Did you even run the data right? These are all good things. So there is a place for foundations. The foundations are, in my opinion, what will bring you to solid, substantial work. And then you should always be putting on that bite size, that just in time, that what are other people, what are the cutting edge, and adding them. So I'm very much a fan of sort of the hybrid. I don't think everything has to be in this really traditional format. Like, yes, you can take a full academic course. There are great ones. We're going to be doing the People Analytics Academy. You can get depth in Santa Cruz. It's lovely, great weather. You can get it in depth, but at the same time, I'm a big fan of, balancing the two together. And I think that's what's going to make you a professional, but also it's what's going to keep you cutting edge and like a true practitioner at the same time.
Who here is considers himself a learner of people analytics? Talk about another leading question. Yeah, it's one thing too. I mean, we've been at it for a number of years, and I'll say when I first started, I have an economics background like Gitanjali. I'm sure she got better grades, but we have similar backgrounds. But I had a very research methodology, and now we're very much in a build. We're building products all over the place, and we're consuming products. So we have to Heather's point, have to have what I would call analytical diversity. What approach is appropriate given the business question at hand? So, hopefully we're not only learning at a conference like this, but we're learning, ongoing. So let's toggle a little bit to skills of the future, broadly, because there's platforms like Degreed that are capturing data, which, you can take, like you were saying earlier, Ian. What would you recommend in terms of identifying how to prioritize learning content? Because right now, and let me frame the question a little bit better. Right now, and this is going to be the new normal, I know that's an overused term, but we have a lot of digital transformation, business transformation, HR transformation going on, implying that we're at a current state, we're going towards a future state. As soon as we're out the future state, we're all going to high five and we're cool. And obviously, that's not going to happen. We are going to perpetually change and disrupt. Therefore, the challenge, and it's caught in much of our language now, is around agile transformation, agile workforce planning, things like that. So the number of people that are going to be employed in the United States in certain job families, certain organizations, is going to likely shrink. And jobs are going to go elsewhere in the world because it's cheaper and as good, if not better. Automation is disrupting what's happening. AI is disrupting what's happening. So therefore, the jobs are going to change. Therefore, people are going to have to learn faster and more appropriately. So I don't have the fix for that, yet data can inform a lot of these priorities. So that is a long lead-in, Ian, to what do you believe, given all this disruption, organizations should be focusing on to help them prioritize and enable their workers to learn quickly and appropriately?
Yeah, so I think if we think more broadly, right, beyond just HR, which I think is where you're going, right, then I think getting signals from the market around what is changing and how is that evolving and preparing for that is ultimately what we're trying to think about as an organization. And so at Cisco, something that we were constantly trying to stay ahead of is, in order to enable this shift from hardware to software that the company was going through, what are those skills that are needed? What are the skills that are going away? What are the roles that are going away, et cetera, right? And it is the basics of workforce planning around, do you build it, do you buy it? But it's so much more complicated than that, obviously. And this concept of that John Boudreau talks about and others of breaking jobs down into tasks, thinking more about what's going to go away from an automation perspective, what's left that we need the humans to do, and then what are the skills to do that, and deconstructing everything, I think is a much better way of thinking about it all. And so when you're able to do that, you're then able to start to understand where you have the right skills and where you have that depth of talent in your organization. You're able to understand, using the data that's available, where that depth of talent or those skills exist in the market, and you're able to start to be much more planful around how you go after those and what the cost of going after them externally is versus building them internally, right? And so I think, it is that complete cycle. It is about having that link between the conversations that are going on in the business and the HR organization to be much more fluid around that workforce planning process and using those signals that are out there.
I love it. Who here has in their organization is doing something like Ian just described, looking at the task, the actual work being done, as opposed to the jobs? So I'll just put this out as a challenge/opportunity to the field. I think when you talk about skating to the puck or running to the ball where it's going, I think this is one key area that we have to be way more assertive on. And I would go so far as I know/believe we need to do this. And this is why. Who here has an OD type degree? Anyone have a? So in the basics of job design, what would you do if you go open a textbook? You would actually identify the work, then you cluster the work, and then you look at the capacity and skills required to do that, and then you have a job. So that is a bunch of heavy lifting, and by the time you do that manual process in 2019 and beyond, it's stale, it's old, it doesn't work. So things are happening so fast. But now, theoretically, we have the tools that will enable us to understand not only how jobs are shifting currently, but how they will likely shift in the future. Is that, however, informing our learning strategy? Is that, however, informing our internal mobility strategy? In most cases, no. So I personally believe that we're like at a 2 on a 10-point scale of where we're going to be in 5 years from now. There's massive opportunity. People say, oh, this is a new discipline. It's great. We've been doing this for 10 plus years now, and we've certainly progressed. But we have to, I believe, actually do better, have a stronger, more confident narrative, and explore the possible. So, Heather, I know you have opinions on this, and I'm not even going to ask you a question. You just go.
I do. I'm nothing if not opinionated. When I think about the future of work, I heard a stat just this last week. 1 in 5 workers by 2022 will be working alongside some form of AI. So there's not quite 5 people at every table. One of you is going to be side by side with some form of algorithm, machine learning, fill in your form of AI here. And that is going to fundamentally change the skills that everyone needs, whether you're in the people analytics space or broader in the world. And there's going to obviously be the need for skills that are around technology, not just building AI or building tech, but being able to speak the language, work with it. But what I find more interesting is all of the technical advancements, in my opinion, are making non-technical skills the true commodity of the future. So all of these tasks that are able to be automated and moved away are making it more important that the future worker has uniquely human skills. The machine can do the basic task. The human needs to be creative. The human needs to understand the business strategy and know when to apply it at different times. The human needs to do the problem solving, not the math, the actual problem big thinking. So we're going to see an increased demand of uniquely human soft skills in a more technological world, which I think is fascinating and exciting. And in fact, we're listing out, creative, problem solver. I think probably one of the number one skills will be adaptive learner. There's a quote, I'm sorry, I can't remember whose it is. I'm stealing this from somebody. The future isn't about earning a living. The future is about learning a living. And those are going to be the people who can make it. It's no longer about how many years you had in the financial industry. It's now about how adaptable you are, how much you can learn the next set of algorithms that are moving it forward, how much you can connect systems and resources to communities. And that's really, in my opinion, what the true future of work is all about.
So show of hands, when your organization is recruiting and assessing talent to come into the organization, who among you is actually assessing for this growth mindset, this learning agility? I'm so scared right now. Seriously, I mean, not only is Heather saying this, I mean, almost every thought leader and business executive say we need to learn faster and more appropriately. We're not assessing for that. Whose internal development priority is teaching growth mindset or something similar? All right. I'm just calling it out right now. Hopefully we have more hands raised in the future. And there's a great case study out there with Microsoft. Microsoft transformed their whole, there's somebody from Microsoft in here, I don't know if they're still here, but they transformed their whole organization anchored on growth mindset, insatiable curiosity and willingness to learn. That changed conversations internally. It changed mental models, frameworks, how they approach ideas. It changes everything. So I would strongly advocate. So I had a question for you, Ian, that was a segue off it. I can't remember. So I'm sure you have some thoughts, so just take it away.
I agree. No, I think the growth mindset piece is super important, right? And I do think just the curiosity and the willingness to learn, and I think this flexibility for organizations to start to think about transferability and that nobody's we have this tendency to hire, when we hire, to try and hire the exact someone that's been doing that job for 2-3 years, right, and drop them in here. And it's like, well, typically that person might not want to come and start again and do that all over again, right? They want to grow and they want to learn. So we have to be comfortable, especially as things move quicker, to hire people that are 80% of the way there. And, as Tomas was talking about, the whole concept of how do we measure potential and things like that, it's incredibly hard to get this right? Yeah. Hiring is incredibly difficult, but we have to be thinking more like that we're okay with someone moving from finance to HR, from HR to sales, people moving beyond silos. And I think by breaking it down and making the data available and focusing more on things like internal mobility and things like that, we're opening the door to do that. Yeah. It's
did someone raise their hand for a question, or is that I just made that up? It was the gentleman with Karen. My fault. Actually, if we could run a mic back to that gentleman, because that's a long ways, and I'm too lazy. And as it's going over there, I'm going to ask just a very quick question. Actually, no, I'm going to wait. He's almost there. Because there's no quick question with me and Heather. So.
Yeah, either. Thanks for doing this question for Heather and Ian. I think we hear a lot that there are predictions of the future of work being that we'll be working alongside AI. But I'm seeing a lot of AI in practice today, and we aren't necessarily seeing that model for how this future of work is evolving. Like what kind of points do you have for that thesis that this is, what the future of work might be and might evolve into?
So I think we are seeing it. I think people don't know that we are seeing it. So you see this in probably even some of the least sexiest stuff that you work with. So even in HR systems where you ask a question and it's filtering up potential right answers, believe it or not, that actually loosely counts. And it's just the advancement of more things like that. And so it's not this post-apocalyptic world that I think everybody's been imagining where the robots take our jobs. Like, that's not how it's going to be. It's going to feel a lot like what happened with the consumer internet. None of you sit here and go, oh my goodness, I interact with AI every day to get my Lyft or Uber driver. You don't think that way because it's the new normal. And that's what I think is on the way. So I think it's here. I think it's going to be here. And it's going to be one of those things that you don't forget. Like, you didn't even notice it happened. Like, nobody's still excited about the DVD player. It was really cool at the time and everybody was talking about it, and here now we're all onto streaming and we never knew it happened. It's going to become the new normal. So that's more around what I think it is, but we as learners don't always catch up that quickly. So I think it's important that people start talking now about how to build the skills, how to interact with it, how to work with it, so that, we aren't that person still fumbling, trying to figure out their smartphone. We can be, ready for the next phase.
Yeah, and I think it's happening in teeny tiny little steps, right? And sometimes it's really not working either, So the recommended text in your Gmail or LinkedIn that you get an email and it's like, thanks, I'm really interested. It's like, no, I'm not actually. It's a terrible suggestion. But so there's things like that where we're seeing it's happening and we're like, oh, that's not that great, right? And then there's other examples like Spotify did it, some others have done it as well, of just really simple RPA, so robotic process automation, like where you're taking like your payroll process or something around how you send offer letters out, or bonus letters, and you're just kind of automating that. And it's super simple. It's if this, then that, right? It's very basic automation, but it's just taken a load of manual admin away from people. And that's AI. It's just, it's very basic, right? And I think that's the reality. We're not at, artificial general automation where we're like everything is intelligence, where everything is, being done by a robot, but we are seeing little tweaks, little bits of machine learning that are making life a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. Well, as we start to wrap up, as you well know, many people here are just starting out in their careers, in their organizations, or they just moved into people analytics. Others have been around quite a while. They've had some struggles. They've had accomplishments. All of us, as we agreed earlier, want to learn and grow. So Ian, and then I'll ask Heather to anchor it. What would you advise, to how to prioritize your learning, in a succinct way? If someone came up to you and say, hey, how do I improve? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I guess one is just maintain curiosity, right? So be open to it. It's that growth mindset. I think it's kind of that simple, right? And then the other is you've got to, I think, focus on what it is you're doing. I really do. Like, learn for the task at hand so that you can apply the learning. Yeah. So if you're about to do an O&A project because you're inspired by Rob Cross this morning, then start learning about O&A and just get stuck into that. Don't try and do everything, right? Just pick something that is going to help you get your job done and help you move forward. But it's little bite-sized pieces. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to, and I'm definitely projecting, so I'll own that, but we've known each other long enough. The business problem, let's say O&A in that example is not appropriate for something that is a priority for the organization. And so, is it an and in your mind where, okay, you have this pet project O&A over here, but right now I'm going to deal with this and be open-minded to learn about that? What's your thought there? Yeah,
I mean, we talk about this a lot, right?
Yeah, we do.
Start with the business problem, and it is important, and you've got to do that, right? But I think it's about which tool do you then have in your toolkit to help with that, right? And do you have all of the things you need, and are there other things you can learn to help do that? You're going to get much more traction with what you're doing if it puts a fire out for the business and it's a burning platform. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I love what you're saying so much because we have to be passionate, right? We got to be fired up about what we're doing. And if O&A is going to fire you up and you believe there's a business case that can be applied, you got to advocate for it because as we agreed with Elizabeth Jones up here, she's not going to know. She's not going to be the expert and say, this is what we got to do. We have to bring that narrative forth. So thank you for that. Heather?
Yeah, so in terms of learning, I guess, lately I've been working on my syllabus for a course in people analytics and, 5 broad topics. Data and analytics, duh, is a people analytics course. So I'd say, work on understanding how do I get data? How do I work with data? How do I do analysis? That research methods concept that I was talking about, but more on just how do I know if I'm measuring the right things in the right way and I'm answering the questions that are being asked. So don't just analyze to analyze. Definitely on the business alignment. So how do you actually think about it in an applied setting? How do I answer a business question? Is this what people know? Data privacy, governance, the doing good with people data is a huge part of the curriculum, and I think it's something that we need to usher in and push and be talking about all the time. But of the number 5 concept that I always try to teach, and I'd say, yes, all of those are important, but if you had one to maybe spend a little bit more time on that I think we don't spend enough time on, storytelling and inspiring. And so, yes, I mean data visualization, but tell your story. If you only analyze and you never share, or you don't share well, it's never going to kind of make it to the next level. So yeah, we might not be very far along with data science or AI and people analytics, but the more that we can share the story, tell it in a compelling, inspiring, emotionally relevant way for business leaders, HR professionals, and employees, that's going to do more for the people analytics space and for you personally. Because if you get up there and you're like got this cool analysis and you know how to tell it. Like you got that really cool looking slide. You got this like human story that just makes them want to cry because, that world will be so perfect. That's when your ideas will be implemented. That's where you'll see the outputs. That's where it'll go. So if you could have a little bit of extra time, spend it on your own storytelling, spend it on your own visualization, share it, like how to share your message. You'll get so much further with everything you do.
Outstanding. Well, thank you both for being here and sharing. You're outstanding.
Thank you.